welcome to the January 4th, 2023 Weare Finance Committee meeting. What I want to do is take a few minutes and get these minutes behind us, the ones that we haven't gone over and approved. I distributed hard copies to people who were here the last time, and they also been emailed to you. So what I'd like to do is just take a look and see if there's anybody who's recommending changes on any of them, and then we can finalize them and move on. And the next time around, we'll just have this meeting to deal with as far as minutes go. So starting with the minutes of October 19th, which are fairly short, that was just our organizational meeting. So is there anybody who has changes they'd like to see made to those minutes?
Just going to correct the spelling of my last name in the first paragraph. There's an extra R in there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I assume I'm going to notate changes that come up, and I'll adjust the draft minutes to final minutes, correct?
Okay. Anything else on those? Like a motion to approve the minutes of October 19th, I'll make the motion, as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Tuesday, November 22nd. Does anybody have changes there? Okay, there being none, I guess, so we'll move on to moving that the minutes of November 22nd, 2022 be approved as written. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Easy.
December 7th. Had a couple of little just typos. Second page, EE asks, it says is, it should be if some officers receive both a salary and a stipend. So there's one change, it's well, you don't have hard copies with you, but it's on the paragraph that starts with Elizabeth Evans. It's near the end
The
of the
last
second
one,
page.
if you printed it. The last paragraph.
Last
if it's
paragraph,
printed.
those of you have the printed, right?
Third line toward the end.
Oh, yeah.
Change is to if, and then over in the, toward the center of the page, on the third page, I just changed if to of, one of which is vacant. It's when Chief Moore is speaking in his second paragraph at last line. The plan is for 5 patrol vehicles plus 2 command vehicles, one of which is vacant.
Got it.
Any other changes? There being none, move to approve the minutes of December 7th as amended.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Took us 4 months to get to this point.
Right.
Flying along now.
Okay, minutes from December 21st.
That's up tonight.
Had one teeny change. First page, last paragraph. JC said that they are not, and that only salaries, costs, etc. Changing AN to AND.
Got it.
Any other changes? Move to approve the minutes of December 21st, 2022 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
We'll post them and file them. Thank you.
Tom, could you make a note to send me the electronic copy of the October 19th ones,
Okay.
so I can send them to the town clerk? Thank you.
I had an email from John Morgan asking if the committee would consider removing Leah Bola for non-attendance. My feeling is she already removed herself, so if we just acknowledge that, it's a more positive move than our saying you're off the committee because you're not attending, because she told us she wasn't gonna be attending. And leave the door open for her to resubmit next year if she wishes. But that was pretty clear, so rather than having a motion, I'd rather just leave it at that in the minutes, that she had already informed us that she would not be on the committee for the remainder of the year. Is everybody okay
Who
with
did
that?
she inform? But I think that just needs to be part of the minutes, who she informed.
Yeah, she informed me, and I brought that up at one of the previous
Right,
meetings.
I just didn't know who she actually
Yeah,
informed.
she did. Informed the chair,
I have a question.
yes.
So somebody removes themselves for the year, are they entitled to come back and finish their term? Or are we talking about she's gotta go through the moderator and get a request to be back on the board? I don't know how many years on her
I'm
term.
not sure. I don't know.
Well, from what John asked you, it sounds like his opinion is that she's been removed and would have to go back to get reinstated.
Yeah, and that's probably okay, because if her work situation doesn't change, she might be in the same predicament for next year, so I would say that we'll go with that, have the minutes reflect that if she would like to continue or be reinstated next year, contact the moderator.
And do we need to now appoint officially a new secretary?
I think Tom already appointed himself, but we can make it official if you like.
Did we vote on that? No, we never voted on
I don't think we did.
it? No.
Oh, you got my vote.
Would you like to pick that a
You're gonna
motion?
run unopposed.
Would you like to do it, Tom?
Do I have to get a majority? Yes,
It only takes 6
I
votes.
will accept if nominated. and
I
elected.
nominate Tom Flaherty without the R in the beginning to take the role of secretary for the remainder of this year.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Now you're officially drafted.
All right, I can't get out of it now.
That's what happens when you do a good job. Before we get into a discussion of I don't know how far we'll get with making recommendations tonight, but what's come up in previous years is, at what point do we include a minority opinion in our write-ups? This is a committee of 9. I'll give you my opinion, and then you can argue it if you so wish, but it seems that if it's a 4 to 5, then you definitely have a minority opinion. If it's 6 to 3, then it's a 2 to 1 vote, and probably not necessary. My opinion.
You're looking at me.
Oh, you're looking at me, you're looking at me as if you have the question.
You're speaking. Yeah,
Well, I think it also depends upon what the desires are of the people that have the dissension. They could feel that it's something that the taxpayer needs to know about very strongly. So I think it has to be handled on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I tend to disagree with that, because we got into discussions last year when 4 to 5, that's pretty, pretty even, and so, having a minority opinion, again, I'm repeating myself, I realize, and please, others, your input is needed.
yeah. Yeah, I know I disagreed last year, and I still feel the same way, because when the voters, I've had people say to me, how come 2 or 3 voted against it? And they don't know, because the minority opinion is silenced. And I think the voters deserve to know why somebody felt that way. I mean, if it was 7 to 2 and one line went in there, the minority felt do. Oh, okay, now I know why the 2 voted that way. It's information to the to the vote, to the people who are going to the polls, to know that. I mean, I know we have, people get upset because a separate flyer is sent out and saying, well, a separate flyer is maybe voicing in the last year or two, here's what the minority opinion might have said, and it could be handled. To me, it's important for us to put out as much information as possible. We're not trying to, I know last year it got to the point where, well, that's one sentence and it's two sentences, and we were breaking the sentence down, so we each had two sentences. I mean, it's childish in some respects. I mean, even my reaction last year on that end. But I just think it's important to have information out there. And I'd feel the same way if I was in the majority. I would want the 2 or 3 to have a voice as to why they felt that was important.
Others?
I'd agree with Bill.
Good,
I agree with him.
okay. Sometimes the minority opinion can solidify the majority, too. If the minority has a reason that just doesn't seem to make any sense, you can say, well, okay, they voted against it, and the reason doesn't really resonate with me. And the other thing is, sitting in the peanut gallery every year in the deliberative, I often wonder, why did the board split, especially on a split like that, 5-4? I've always wanted to know that, and it's not usually provided. Sometimes that might change my opinion, and the Supreme Court does it on every case, so it doesn't hurt them too much, but I'm not saying we have to do it on a 8-1 or 7-2, but
Yeah, my suggestion was to keep away from not having to debate where the split's gonna be every time. But if the majority feels that there should be a minority opinion in every case, then that's so be it. I'm certainly
I
can't
think James
argue
had an
about that.
opinion.
James?
Yeah, as one of those in years past that suggested having a break someplace, like at the 3-person or greater mark. The idea was to not get bogged down when the minority was a very small minority. However, as we've gone through it, I do think probably including the minority, even if it's just one person, just for that additional little bit of information to say, hey, only one person saw this, and this was the reason that I saw that we shouldn't vote for something. So I would say, yeah, if we just include it for everything, then there's no real place to argue about it.
Others?
Is there, I don't know if it would be on every issue, just as my feeling, because if it's let's say it's a police car, and the majority says, 8 people say, I think we need that police car. One person says, I think we should wait till next year. I mean, I don't know if that's,
That would be easy to write up.
it would be easy to write up, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, usually the wording goes a little deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you feel we shouldn't, not just, no, I don't think we should do it, wait till next year.
Well, because everyone will pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree that the more information, the better for transparency for the voters and taxpayers, just to be able to come to their own conclusions at the polls and not have the weight of feeling as though that there's missing information.
Okay, it seems like there's certainly a majority who feel that way. Is there anyone else who would?
I feel the same way James does about it.
All right, then we will look at it as we go along again, and in all likelihood, have a minority opinion in most cases. Is that what people are feeling? Okay. Put it in writing.
majority want the minority. Okay.
So let it be written, so let it be done.
Now, we're gonna be focusing on discussion of the schools tonight. Is there anything from the subcommittees on schools that you'd like to bring up in advance of that? One thing, I ran off copies of the information you wanted from
Yeah, Chris Roy sent me just some answers to the questions. I think I sent them out, I sent them, I tried to get them out to everybody today, in emails.
Oh, well, I printed off the ones from, it's the one on class size, and the other one on the,
Is that the
Federal monies.
funding, and then there's just the email that Chris answered some of the questions.
so if you want, I can pass these out, and we can use them as a reference.
You
if you
can,
want.
yeah,
I've printed them.
You
I
have
can
them?
give
you
Yeah.
have them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Three.
There's one other bunch.
Is there one extra here? Yeah. Is there enough over there? There's one extra here, so.
I'll send extra scrap paper.
You need more?
Nope,
No.
I think everybody got one over there.
So, we'll start with Weare schools? You have something that you'd
Could
like
I-
to report?
Could I just say something right before we get into the schools? Just an overarching item that caught my attention today on, something I think we need to just be sensitive to as we go through on the total costs coming down the line on how much was returned to offset taxes last year as compared to the 5 years before that. I think it's important because last year when we put out our boilerplate, before we put out our recommendations, it said in there that the taxes may go up as much as $700 on a $350,000 house. And then we tempered that by saying, historically, we have had a little over $1 million returned to offset taxes between the town, Weare schools, and Stark. And normally that would have brought it down to about a $300-some increase on a $350,000 house. Well, the taxes, they went up a little bit last year, but they didn't go up that much. Like my taxes on a $350-some thousand assessed house went up $70-some annually. I said, well, how come? Well, what happened was the amount returned to offset taxes was not 1.1 million last year, it was 2.1 million. Because the town gave back 600,000 as opposed to an average of 200 and some thousand over the previous 5 years. And the Weare schools returned $952,000 as opposed to historic averages of 500,000. And Stark's was 589,000, our portion was 800,000, but the Weare portion was 589 instead of 390. So I call it the COVID outlier. It was kind of a strange year, so more money got returned. And what happened was taxes didn't get raised as much as we would have expected last year. That's good news, except for this year. Because now, you're really, if it's a potential of $350 on a house, you're already starting out $350 catch-up on the taxes, potentially, if it returns to the levels of historic amount returned to tax. So I think as we go, the only thing I want to say is as we go through this, recognize that there may be a dark cloud that says we're already playing catch-up based on it. Go ahead.
Is the money returned because of
It wasn't
performing
spent.
better than the budget, or
No,
because
money,
of?
money was there in excess of what was spent.
Yeah, they didn't submit it all.
Just to add to that, is two different scenarios. The schools, it's an automatic,
Yeah.
whatever money's left is automatically turned back to offset taxes, or to put toward the next year's, however you want to phrase it. In the town's case, there's not an automatic give back. The selectmen look at what's available and say what potential, what amount can we give back and still have enough cash flow to cover both the town and the schools for the year, because all of the tax money is funneled through the town regardless of what its destination is. So, that's why it doesn't automatically go back from the town, otherwise we could be left without, the cash flow needed to keep everybody running. So, there are two different scenarios. The town usually does give something back, but it varies from year to year depending on how much the fund balance has in it at the end.
That happens though because the town and the schools performed better than the budget.
It bills, for the town, it bills over the years. It's not an all-in-one-year thing. You have an ongoing fund balance, and so some of it would be accumulated from the previous year.
Previous years.
And some of it is from that given year. With the schools, it's just the way I guess the RSAs are written, that whatever is left goes back to offset taxes, and I guess it does go to their management as far as what's left.
And you can have things like healthcare, they have established a GMA every year. Last year it was like 17.5%, so they have to put that in the budget. But when the actual costs come out, it may be like way
Might be
down,
less.
much less.
Yeah.
Or maybe over, and
Yeah.
that's a
Understood.
benefit. But it's, I mean, not over, but if it went over, that capped at what that GMA is. So that's money that's there potentially to be returned. They may have positions that they haven't filled.
Yeah.
So it's in the salary line, but it's not filled, so money is returned. It goes through the,
But in the end, it's money that was forecasted to be spent that wasn't.
That wasn't spent, correct.
In the case of the town, I know some of it has been because of vacancies in the last few years. Probably a good share of that that's turned back is because of positions that couldn't be filled because the personnel were not available to take those positions. Anything else on this train of thought?
No, I just wanted to put that out there, last year was a strange year, and just be careful as we move forward on what we may be dealing with.
Yeah, it's a strange year for me because my valuation went up and my taxes went down.
How'd you do that?
I don't know.
Want to share?
I was just happy. Just leave it at that. Went out and bought a new puppy.
Don't ask no questions.
Okay, what's next here? Discussion of school budgets, et cetera. So we have the budgets, there's a para contract, I believe, too. So again, I would like to lean on those people who have been through the whole process with the schools as we go through this. And in one of your emails, Bill, going back to you because you have been in the meetings, you said that in the minutes, one of our past minutes, that often this is a point where maybe a recommendation is made to the schools from this committee if we feel that something should be adjusted.
Well, I did ask, I didn't ask them to make a change. I just asked Chris in my email if there had been any changes, and there hasn't been. So there's a public hearing on it next week, next Wednesday night, I think. So that'll be presented, basically the same thing that was presented to us. We can say how we feel on it. I'm looking at a couple things in particular with the Weare schools. I think the most important thing with the Weare schools is to get the contract passed for the paras, the support staff. I strongly support that because of what Dr. Coe had said on the cost that's being incurred by contracting out for services on the positions that they can't fill. I think I heard there were 10 positions or so that you couldn't fill during the year, and that if you're paying the contractor $45,000 for that service, the support staff's getting paid more than the teacher is potentially in the classroom. Right. Now, if you can find a sweet spot, and they went through a negotiation, and the folks didn't want benefits, but they wanted the increased pay. If they can find that sweet spot where people will come in and be hired at that pay scale, that's going to save money in the future. So there are positions that they have to fill, and I think we ought to do everything we can to support that contract.
This is a two-year contract.
Two-year contract, I think it was going to cost.
First year, para one starts at $14.50, and
Go ahead.
para two has a range from $15 to $23.50.
I think that's what it said, depending on the certifications, yeah. And it's fine, it's just basically finding the sweet spot, and hopefully it will work out to where they're able to fill those positions. Now, moving on to the budget, since I really want to get the contract approved, in my opinion, the budget was at one point over 4% from the previous year, and has been brought down, the proposed budget, 2.75%. There's about a $55,000 difference between the proposed and the default, which is small. But both of those are about 400-some thousand higher than the current budget that they're operating under. And the school did return $952,000 last year out of the budget. So when it comes to the budget, even though it's only a $55,000 difference, I'm supporting the default budget, because that's $55,000. And you say it's a small amount, but a penny here, a penny there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money when you add everything together. So I'm trying to save as much money as I can to get what is truly needed, also recognizing the looming cloud of how much we may be playing catch-up from last year, to try and save anywhere we can and get the most important stuff. And the same thing when it crosses over, we start talking about town budgets. The town budget, towns haven't had an approved operating budget for the last 3 years, and that's becoming critical. So the Weare schools have had an approved budget for, I think it's, each of the last 2 years, they did have their budget approved. So they've been operating with a proposed budget for 2021 and 2022, 2023. So I feel that the default budget will be sufficient to operate with.
So if I may add, my concern with the default budget is looking at the allocation of special ed needs and trying to hire in a tight labor market. And we of course see economically the labor market loosening as we go into a recession. However, when we consider the needs of the school and our children, to not allow or not provide the schools with the tools in their toolbox to provide for the students, I think could potentially hurt us and cost more, because it would potentially cause for more contract services to be needed. That would then increase the budget over time versus providing the tools needed based on the proposed budget versus the default. And if there are funds that are then allocated back to the town, then that's a net positive, where we can say that the schools are being fiscally responsible in managing those funds, where they're able to then provide that allocation disclosure back.
Others?
Do we have a projection on the amount to be returned this year? Still can't tell right now, right?
The only thing I believe I heard at one of the meetings is that the current balance is ahead of where it was last year, but I don't think there's any way of knowing by the end of the year what, I don't know. I'll let, I defer.
I mean, is it okay? We are trending significantly higher again. We do still have unfilled positions. We continue to trend higher. We have some positions we aren't filling. That's part of how we were able to do the position cuts that we were bringing to you, because we've figured out different ways to meet some of those needs. So I do anticipate we're going to return more, because we still have ESSER funds that we keep leveraging rather than going into the budget as things come up. So I think it will continue to be a high return offset of taxes,
Okay, so when you say high return, the one,
more than pre-COVID.
more than, okay, but maybe not as much as it was last year.
Maybe not as much
Yeah,
as
yeah,
last
okay,
year.
somewhere, okay, in between, okay.
It's a little harder to predict with the schools
Yeah.
because of their fiscal year.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Town's fiscal year ended already
Yeah.
for this last year. June 30th? June 30th. I was gonna say 31st, but there is no such date. Other
I missed the
opinions?
last meeting, but what is the cause of the increase in the special ed of 345K?
One thing they were, I believe, anticipating an out-of-district placement. That gets really pricey, so I believe that's one of the estimates that were in there.
I think there was also coding changes, and I don't know if it's in the speech-related field, but it's requiring more attention, special attention, and a broader cross-section of students, and it's increasing their costs because they're required to do it. Which incidentally, I believe I'm correct on this, but I may be mistaken. Whether it's in the operating budget or the default budget, those are built into both. So it shouldn't, I mean, where there's only $55,000 difference, it shouldn't be an impact on,
No, I know specifically looking at the proposed.
yeah.
Yeah. And then the other large item was in purchase services. That was 540K, 541.
I think that's tied in too, because isn't the speech, which was an in-house service, now a purchased service? So in other words, they're contracting out speech services, which would increase that line.
Thank you.
It's something to keep in the back of our mind for this budget as well as others, is that with the level of inflation, it works two ways. We look at our own budgets and what we can afford in taxes, and we also have to look at inflation and how it is affecting school utilities and so forth as well.
Throw a question out, just my recollection isn't 100% on this. Didn't a couple of years ago, the school district at the meeting, at the deliberative vote to spend money that was left over? Was there a parking lot that was upgraded with leftover money in the past? You said they have to return it all, but I thought I recall,
Yeah, the way it works, they return it all unless it's designated for something and it's approved on the warrant as such, so that, you're right. I believe they have a specific fund for infrastructure or whatever, and they could put a warrant article on the warrant asking voters to approve X number of dollars to be put into their building fund or whatever it's called. I don't know what the name of the fund is. Reserved for that.
Yeah.
In this case, it was for the parking lot, I believe.
so there was a warrant for that.
Or was there extra money coming in from someplace else for that?
The board is able to manage the bottom line of the budget, and so what has to go back, or what offsets taxes is what is left on June 30th. So up until that point, the board is able to manage the bottom line.
Unencumbered, yeah.
Yeah.
So that affected the amount,
Yes,
before the amount was tallied to give back, that was done.
yes.
And then what was left over was left over, yeah.
Could you, Jackie, clarify that for me, because I thought I had a different perception of it. So you're saying if there's money left, the board can spend it on their own because it's part of the operating budget and they can spend it down, whether it's for paving a parking lot or buying new desks and chairs or whatever. Is that correct?
Well, at any point during the year, it's a little bit of a misnomer to say it's left, because they could right now decide, rather than one of the unfilled positions, we want to pave a parking lot. And we can't manage that because it's going in between lines, but the board could say, we're going to transfer money from this line to this line and pay for that project.
As long as it's encumbered before June 30th.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
And that coincides with what the town can do as well.
Right.
And that is if there's a surplus at the end of the year and there are needs that are going to be going into the upcoming year's budget, for example, and they say, well, why don't we buy it now? They can do that. It's the same idea. I didn't realize that was the case.
So the difference is, once it's June 30th, what is on the bottom line is no longer part of the school budget.
That's where that other concept can come in.
Yes, and so what can go before the voters is a warrant article to put money into a fund. So we have a capital reserve fund for improvements, for infrastructure projects, and knowing that we have $1.5 million right now on the bottom line and that we're ahead of last year, perhaps the board will say, we'd like to ask the voters to put $50,000 of that into a fund. I don't know what the board will do if they'll decide to do that. I'm not recommending that this year because we have ESSER funds and we have a significant amount of money in our infrastructure account. And until we have a plan for Centerwoods and what we want to do with Centerwoods, I don't think it makes sense to continue to put money away, but they are able to do that. And that goes before the voters.
I know what you're going to say.
You know what I'm going to say. It's not a problem with Stark because they already did it by the vote.
Yes.
Yeah, which we had voted 13-0 not to support that one. But, yeah, that's the kind of one that upsets the voters, I think.
Yeah.
So, I hope we don't see that one coming in for Weare.
I
A one like
can't
that.
imagine that it would.
Yeah, okay.
Just as a reference, what Bill's referring to was the John Stark article was worded in such a way that it would be an ongoing, how do I phrase it? It didn't have to be voted on every year. It was an ongoing amount that could be
Non-lapsing.
taken with it.
They could, if they so desired. It builds up to a certain level. They can't do a set amount each year to keep building it, but it's capped at I forget what the formula is that they use for that, but that's taken away now. And it was the year that had the voting was such that we had the town deliberative and we had the Weare schools, and then later we had the Stark when not too many people voted. And that's when it passed.
Okay, where are we? Any other questions on the budget from either the Weare budget or the John Stark budget? And if not, maybe we could take a look tonight at the Paris contract at least, if people are ready to make a decision as far as recommending. The idea is to get moving along, because if you look at our future meetings and what we still have to deal with, any decisions we can make would be helpful. I could start it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I move to recommend the,
The only thing, we haven't seen the contract. We've heard the details on the contract, and I think we're supportive of that. I don't know if we're premature without seeing the actual contract. Is that going to be posted?
It is posted right
It is
now, I
posted.
believe.
Okay,
there are
okay.
a number of contracts posted under Human Resources, and I had a hard time sorting out which is which.
It should be in the budget section. So with the, let me double check. It has now been signed by everyone. It needs to be signed by for us to be able to
Okay,
post.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if it's not there right now, it'll be there tomorrow.
But it may be one that we might have a feeling about, but it may to take a
Straw vote.
take a straw vote, yeah. I mean,
Good comment.
I guess.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna be reluctant to cast a final vote on anything, because we haven't even seen the refined town budget yet, which was 9.8% the other night, and I know there's workshops going on. But I think we should consider the larger package. I will anyways. You know, you might say this is great, but then you look at it all combined and it might be a really large tax increase. We don't know. So straw vote, I'm fine with, but I reserve the right to refine my vote as we go. I may change it. This is still outstanding
We actually
information.
do that at any point in time anyways, even after the deliberative session.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was accepted and kosher with everybody.
Not having seen the contract, I don't think I could even give you a straw opinion at this point. I mean, in theory, it sounds like it's the right thing to do, but without looking at
Yeah,
it.
they're almost up with Dunkin' Donuts pay.
Yeah. But there's, you know, sometimes in a contract, there's some other stuff, I mean, the John Stark teachers no, I'm sorry, the Weare teachers contract last year had the provision with the healthcare after you early retire and it's gonna get paid for, and it's,
Yeah.
I had the comments that, well, 10 years, 2 people a year, 20 people, half a healthcare premium. I said, that's a plow truck a year for the town, and it is. And that's the main reason I didn't support that contract last year, was the slipped in, that, not slipped in, but an added provision that didn't get the highlights of pay increases and how we retain teachers. And I said, wait, what's this one over here? How's that producing a more positive outcome for the students in the classroom, you know? So you probably want to look at it, yeah.
I can't discuss without looking at the contract.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
detail.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see, but we can see it tomorrow in a moment.
I'll make sure it gets sent to you tomorrow, and we'll make sure it's posted.
Thank you.
So, this seemed to be the most cut and dry of the decisions we have to make, to me. So I don't really, I'm open to suggestions of where we want to go with our discussions tonight. Because apparently if we did not want to take a vote on this, I understand, then how about the operating budgets? Are we ready to do that, or are we not ready to do that at this point?
Well, I think an opinion gave forward a few minutes ago that said without everything together, it's kind of hard to form an opinion on individual pieces. So I do think there's a lot more to be known before we can start moving forward with anything.
I was just looking at this earlier this evening. It's our schedule. Deliberative session for the town is February 4th. And followed shortly thereafter by the deliberative sessions for the schools. But by the 4th, we have to have our decisions made, probably on all of them, because if we're talking about a package, we have to, so we've got maybe 3 weeks, maybe a little bit more than that, because we have to have time here to discuss the wording that we want to have in the mailer for our recommendations. There has to be time to, it's not to print the mailer, but to print off our recommendations for the deliberative sessions. I would think, Naomi, I have a question. When would we be able to see the town warrant as a whole? Would that be available on the 25th?
Oh, yeah, has to be,
Okay,
because I have to have it ready for the 16th to have a public hearing.
okay. So the 25th would be then, unless we wanted to fit another meeting in between.
I'm okay setting more meetings.
If we have to, yeah.
If that's what we need to do to get the job done, I'm certainly okay with that.
So the 16th is the public hearing on the budget, so that the whole warrant will be ready at that time. So we could take a look at it shortly thereafter. What day of the week is the 16th?
It's a Monday, I think.
Monday.
It's a Monday night.
So how about the 18th?
Is that a holiday?
Martin Luther King Day.
We're open,
Oh, okay.
we're open.
Have we got a
We use
conflict?
it as a floater.
Have we got a conflict with the room at all on the 18th?
Shouldn't be.
That's probably, that's
Next week is conservation on Wednesday, the third Wednesday works.
that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Because at that point, we'll have we'll be able to see the school contract. We can probably, in the,
Is the 18th the third Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay, then why don't we do that, January 18th,
okay.
for the town warrant? And that'll pretty much give us everything in hand, so we can start making decisions without, with the whole picture, as Tom suggested. Well, I'm getting to the end of my agenda.
Was there anything said about certainly we can at least just put out where we're coming from. I mean, I've said plenty. But Stark, we didn't discuss Stark at all. I don't know if anybody had any feelings on that. On the Stark budget.
Yeah, their proposed is a 0.44%, and their default is a reduction of 1.47%, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty flat.
It's hard to argue with that.
Are there any unknowns or outstandings on that? There's no contracts, right?
Do we know their enrollment?
That's a good point. I know that's,
Yeah, this
this is for the Weare
1
schools,
through
because
8,
that's where I was
K through
focused.
8.
That's where I was focused on, was the Weare schools. It's gone from, yeah,
It's going up by 50 students, because both Hennecker and Ware have, the bubble goes up into the high school.
okay.
So,
So are they're in the high 500s or 600 or so right now?
6, they'll go into 6.
They'll pass up,
Yeah,
they're going
they
up to
will.
a little over 6, so it'll be a trend going up from 580 or something like that they were last year. if I
587
remember.
to 614. As of October, it says here.
614,
And so it'll be 50 more than that.
oh, okay,
Oh, 50 more than that.
We're at 614 now.
okay.
Oh, okay.
My opinion, not as chair, but as one voting member, with the John Stark budget, with the numbers that we're looking at, I would have a hard time voting against it. 0.44% increase, and, you know, it's, how much flatter can it get?
I am thrilled to see the vocational education increases in there. Commendable.
Can I actually ask a question about that? Are high school students in Ware allowed to go to Concord Technical School if they want to instead of going to John Stark? Or, like, is an option given to them, like you can go to this vocational school or you can go to John Stark?
No, it's part-time.
It's not a full high
No,
school.
I know that the program is like,
Yeah.
you know, you get to go here for a couple days or whatever and study this, but in the beginning, when a high school person's going into high school, are they given the opportunity to go? No, okay.
Is that in the third year?
We have some sophomores going.
You do?
But it is, I think primarily we have juniors. You go your first year, most of the time it is juniors, and then depending on your performance, you can get asked to come back for a second year.
the children are bused over.
Just to clarify real quick, I think if parents want to send their children to a different school, they can do that, just paying the tuition. for
Right,
that school, you know.
right. Concord tuition, that.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Right, above and beyond whatever they're paying in for taxes and everything here.
Yes.
So, right, so it'd be just like going to a private school.
Okay.
Or anything at that point.
And
if
you'd
parents
have to
wanna
be
pay.
accepted, Concord School Board would have to agree to take you.
Okay.
So,
I have a question based on, as a taxpayer, and just, I know a while back, John Stark put solar panels, and that had reduced their energy expenses significantly. And so my question is, could the board essentially vote for Centerwoods and the middle school to do the same thing, to reduce the cost for Weare, to help essentially just stabilize, because that seemed to have been a good project that yielded positive returns. And I think that there's some wood pellets that are also burning in the school that has brought down energy expenses significantly.
the boiler project at the high school, was the big project that happened a couple years, it's, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago now.
it's 4.
And, is realizing some savings. We are happy with the results of that. Solar panels are on the Henniker School, and, that was also good timing as far as electricity prices. That is not something that has come up in conversation, but any organization could do that, but that hasn't been our focus recently. We're really trying to work through developing a CIP and a plan for the buildings, for Centerwoods, that could be part of a conversation around, what we as a community want to do with that building, because it does have a lot of renovation needs.
Yeah, because it seems like the net positive with the boiler project and then the solar panels in Henniker would not only allow for more autonomy for the town, but the things that we don't control, like OPEC and the geopolitics when it comes to the oil markets and prices that impact all of our homes. It seems like it would almost be a no-brainer, because not only would we have more control over our own resources in town, but we would also save money overall and potentially reduce our taxes based on what we have to pay for fuel storage and all of these other resources that we could just get rid of by introducing alternative energy that we've done in the boiler project and in Henniker, which is a shared expense on the budget. Is that not correct?
The Henniker budget does not impact the Weare budget. John Stark is where the sharing happens. I think any of those things, as board members understand the will of the community, and that's how those initiatives, because they're big undertakings, I then get directed to do the work to make something like that happen. But, so yes, if that is the will of the community, we should get on that.
Definitely to reduce taxes.
There was some discussion because of the success of the program at John Stark, and because it was a guarantee from the company
Yes.
that the savings would be there. There was some discussion about having such a program in Weare at Centerwoods. Did that ever move forward?
We're looking at, right now, we have a company, I think it's E&E, the one who helped us with the boiler, looking at overall needs at Centerwoods. And so once we have that, I think, we can't do anything major at Centerwoods without addressing a lot of things that have been grandfathered. And so I'm looking to have a bigger understanding of the needs of that building for the conversation next year.
I think that you'll find that would be the community's desire as well, because you don't put money into something that you don't know all the other things that you're gonna have to fix.
Right, right,
There's a lot of dominoes that are gonna happen.
exactly.
The John Stark, they're removing their computer repair and maintenance in its entirety. Do you know why? Is that moving somewhere else, maybe outsourced or something?
I don't know, because I was doing Weare schools.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The question regarding the, Janice, would you repeat that?
Yeah, they're detailed under computer repair and maintenance that is being removed in its entirety. It's 12K. I'm just wondering if that's, being outsourced or why the total reduction. I'm assuming it's probably an outsourced, but.
It's a consolidation of lines. We have the budget, we've been doing a lot of movement over the last few years to make the budget a little more clear. So we're trying to consolidate those lines. We are trying to do more actually in-house. We're sharing technology resources across the SAU. So rather than have one guy, and right now they're all guys, one guy doing everything at Centerwoods, and one guy doing everything at Weare Middle School, and one guy at Henniker. We're combining resources, and they're specializing, and so we aren't needing, we're fixing more in-house.
So that money's probably been adjusted on a different line?
Yes.
Such as maybe equipment repair and general.
And if you look at the, I think it's under contracted services, information technology, that is a big jump, but there's also a decrease in salary, a decrease in benefits, a decrease in the repair. There's an increase, I believe, in replacement equipment in the Weare budget.
Thank you.
Just one more item, Tom. Just a budget overview. In the last 2 years, the Weare Schools budget has increased from the actual budget in 21-22 to the proposed budget for 23-24 would be a $1.67 million increase, which is a 10% increase over 2 years. The Stark budget, using the same 2 years, has only gone up from what it was in 21-22 to where the proposed is in 23-24 by $163,000, or a 1.1% increase. So you got 10% increase, and there may be other factors that cause that on the special ed side, more so at the lower level than the upper level, but it's still quite a difference. So just something to consider when we vote and get to that point.
So my question is, what point are we at tonight as far as moving forward? Just general discussion as we're
I
doing?
think general discussion, feeling each other out. where we, and you're putting information out there.
Right.
I don't want to be the one, I'm trying to, I think everybody can pitch in and say what they think to sort of,
Well, I think with
Yeah,
that
Bill.
additional meeting on our calendar, it gives us a little more leeway in making the decisions and being prepared when it comes to the deliberative sessions and to get our opinions down on paper. Anyone else have something that you would like to add to tonight's discussion about the schools or the overall work that we have ahead of us?
Yeah, I just reiterate that I want to look at the para contract, make sure that it is what it is, or I know what it is.
Which should be posted tomorrow.
Yep. And it is, the difference between the default and proposed for Weare, is only 55K, but that 10% over, I like to look at trends myself too. Where has something come from? Where is it going? And so, to me, I'm not in a position where I want to make a decision on the Weare school. The John Stark, .44 is pretty thin, and they tend to be more flat over time anyway. So, I'm feeling pretty comfortable about that. Of course, the default's a reduced budget. That's always kind of tempting, but .44 is well below the inflation rate, never mind the 3% that you usually expect for inflation. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable about John Stark right now for proposed myself, but I don't see any surprises there.
Was John Stark able to take advantage of any of the COVID funding? Does anyone know?
Well, all of the COVID funding, if it was followed per se, was to supplement, not supplant.
Right.
So,
I just didn't know if they were able to.
But that
offset
doesn't
it
mean that
and-
it can't save money in the future because you bought it this year. So in a sense, that concept is shaky because it can impact your budget in future. You just can't say, I'm gonna put X number of dollars toward our budget this year. John, you have anything?
I have one question. Bill, you'd mentioned, I think it was last meeting or the meeting before, that something out of the last 8 years, the performance or what the voters had selected as far as the default budget over the recommended budget. And it seemed to me the voters selected the default budget like almost every year, right?
For the town budget or the schools?
The schools.
The schools, I got it here, the last 2 years for Weare schools, the proposed budget was approved. In 2020, it was not, I had a question mark, I don't have it for 2019, but 2018 was a no, 2017 was a no, and 2016 was a yes. So that's 3 of the last 7 years with one I'm not sure of. Stark, the proposed budget was approved every year, and I don't have the number for 2019, but.
So it must have been the town budget that suffered?
The town budget has not been approved for the last 3 years, 2022, 2021, 2020. So they're going, no, no, no. So when they get a default budget, they're looking at the fuel prices that were in the budget from 3 years ago, salt and sand budget from a couple of years ago, and it's getting.
Yeah, it's loading up.
Yeah, it's loading up. And then when they do put a proposed budget in, now it's a lot different than the default, but it's really, it's running away from them.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm really hoping we can get
It's a little
it.
scary.
We supported it last year. We supported the proposed budget, and it was a 847 to 793 vote. It was pretty close. It almost got approved. That's within about 50 votes. But I think the longer that goes on, the worse the town, because now you got stuff it's in this category, we're taking, and it's not readjusting to where the spending is, like the schools the last 2 years, we're able to readjust categories and get them where they belong, and get them in the right amounts, and you really need to do that.
So
on
the
town
default
side.
budget really lags behind if you keep using it year after year,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not getting.
Yeah, I mean, the school would be the same category, except this year, I asked that question at the last meeting, but a lot of their stuff is requirement to have it, so it actually moves forward with the default budget on some of the special ed stuff. So they aren't.
Because it's included in the calculation for the
Yeah.
default budget.
Yes, so that's why there's only 55,000 between the proposed and the default, but where schools, it's moving together, but in the town side, it's killing them right now. So, we just hope that, with the negotiation going on now, that, I know 9% is a lot, but hopefully, can be worked to really present a viable town budget that the community will support. And when we look at it, we say, that's gonna be a big increase, along with the first thing I said tonight. There may be some things on the other warrant articles that we say, boy, maybe we say no, because we really gotta have this one here, and we put this one off, but to make it clear to the voters that the finance committee says, not Bill Anderson, but the finance committee says, we want to get the budget, an operating budget approved, and in order to do that, we're gonna say no to some other things. So,
Yeah, well, everybody's quick to
yeah.
squawk when they don't have
Yeah.
the services that they want.
Yeah, and they go along in their life, and they don't get as close to it maybe as, certainly as the people doing the work are, or us just participating in the process. But don't don't get complacent because, oh, we'll just muddle along, you know, when the roads need plowing, they'll get plowed, they'll get enough money, you know, and they return a little money every year, and, you know, but at some point, you gotta really get things right.
The problem too is when you're looking at those other warrant articles and the impact that the price increases have. You know,
Yeah.
you take trucks.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about, 205,000 a few years ago, 260,000 now for the same vehicle. So, you know, every time that, that purchase is put off, you're talking about paying thousands of dollars more for it the next time it comes up.
Yeah. Are we done with the school? I don't know if you guys want to sit here all night.
Well, they enjoy our company.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we are, aren't we?
Thank you very much.
You'll discuss more on the 18th.
Pardon me?
You'll discuss further on the 18th with the para contract. Okay. Okay, we'll see you then.
Yes, we got it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So with inflation at over 8%, the FOMC, Federal Open Market Committee, the Fed released their minutes this afternoon at 2, and they provided their projections and expected sustained inflation over time, which does impact the cost of food and other commodities, housing, and all of the things that we use to survive. And so I wonder, I know last session, the discussion about a master plan that affects the town budget and potentially the effect on voting, where it gets shot down. Is that something that we should revisit when the discussion around a master plan for the town to try to figure out where are those gaps and what are the needs for the community?
Well, isn't that the Board of Selection on the,
I don't know, so I am asking.
what do they call them?
Planning board.
Planning Board, thank you. Isn't that their job to say we need an updated,
They put that warrant article
Master
forward
plan.
last year.
Right.
And it did get approved to get on the ballot, and it was
yeah, it was
shot
shut
down.
down?
I
I
don't know
think
what
part of the
status
reason
of
it was shot down personally, I don't know what your discussion was in this committee, was it was worded so that you really couldn't tell how much it was gonna cost to make a master plan.
No, I think it was the first installment.
Right, so I mean, I don't know, I didn't vote for it because I didn't know how much was really gonna be to do a master plan.
Well, that's good input, really. It's one person's opinion, but it probably is more than that. Because I did not read it that way, but that's different because I've been involved in this, you know, as a planning board member and as a select board,
Yeah,
and Southern New Hampshire
20,000 to
planning.
be placed in this fund.
Yeah, so what you're looking for is, okay,
That's 20 out of 25, or is it 20 out of 100?
yeah, I don't know what I'd have to go back and look, but normally when you have it put aside like that, it would give you for example, on this year's warrant, there will be an article for tennis courts. And it's going to be establishing a capital reserve fund to put money into over time to entirely rebuild the tennis court. But it does give you in that warrant article, or at least in the presentation by Denise Purington, what the projected cost of the whole thing is going to be. And I think that's what you're talking about here.
Yeah, so I think your question was, do we need to talk about a master plan update? I don't think we need to talk about it unless it's brought forward by the Board of Selectmen to say that they want that to be a warrant article.
See,
I think they should update their master plan personally, but it hasn't been done in 18 years.
Yeah, I think it makes it hard to vote on the town budget
I agree.
if we haven't determined the fundamental needs of the town and where we should be allocating our
Parks
tax
and Rec are
dollars.
a really good example.
Yeah, it's,
You know, I don't know that personally I'd want to put any money into Parks and Rec because I don't know what the vision is. 18 years ago it was something, it's not that now.
Well, even there, you know, Bolton Field had a master plan. And the Parks and Rec Committee tried to follow it in creating warrant articles. And it still got, they still got defeated. You know, there's a need for renovation of the fields, there's a need for parking, that's a big one down there. And it's been very difficult, and I think,
I think it has been difficult because nobody really understands what the plan is, if there is a plan, and how are you charging for people to use that? Is it anybody uses it for free, or is there some recoup of that money? There's not a holistic discussion about it, it's just, give me money for this. That's all we hear as a taxpayer. Most people don't come to these meetings, don't come to the Board of Selectmen meetings, and the only thing they see is this.
Right.
It did say last year, I was just looking at it, it was gonna be the first of 3 years, but it doesn't say it was gonna be 20,000 each year. It doesn't say, gives,
Well, if I read that, I knew it was 3 years, but if I only read the Warren article, it
Yeah.
just says 20,000 to be placed in the fund.
well, you're right, yeah, and the purpose and, yeah. Yep.
yeah, you said 15 to 18-year-old master plan doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The recommendation is to update it every 10 years at the
Yeah,
latest.
and again, I don't know how much it costs to update a master plan. It could be that, you know, the Board of Selectmen just need to say, we're gonna do it, and here's how we're gonna pay for it, and it doesn't need to be a warrant article. I don't know.
Unfortunately, it happens, and it seems to happen at several different steps, where you have to pay somebody to start, designing how to set about creating the master plan. Then you have to budget for actually doing the research to find out all that stuff. And then you finally pay for the final report, so.
We're a little bit off target, but I think that it's good information because it's an analysis of how people are thinking if they don't have good information.
Right. That's right.
Other business tonight, or any other thoughts before we move on?
I have a personal business issue. I'm probably getting, as you can see, I'm creating a human and I'm going to be induced, probably the first week of February. So my question is can I absentee my opinions in? Do you want me to take a hike? What do you want, what do you want me to do?
Well, don't walk too far right now.
If you're still here for the 18th and the 25th, that's, should be enough to get it.
Yeah, we've never had anybody vote absenteeism on it because the discussion goes back and forth so much, it really isn't possible.
Okay,
But, do as much as we can while you're here.
okay.
Is there an option for, I forgot your name.
Maria.
For Maria to dial in if she's not feeling well, to still be able to participate in the discussions? I mean, Ash, and just based on
Yeah, we
access
really,
and mobility, I don't know.
we really can't do the Zoom thing anymore because there's not the state of emergency. I don't think that's possible at all, is it?
Not Zoom, but she could dial in.
Selectmen
Just
had somebody on the
telephone.
phone
Yeah.
for
If there's
segments.
if somebody's willing to let her dial in and set it on the table.
Can I make a motion to allow for Maria or any individual to have the option to dial in if circumstances allow to participate in discussions? Is that something that needs a motion, or is that, I don't know how that
What does
works.
dial in mean?
On the phone,
It's just call?
yeah, just like a conference
Oh.
call, just like,
Well,
I don't know how we would dial.
in an extreme case, I could see it, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't open that up to a regular thing where you have 5 people
Phones on the
dialing in.
You have to have a quorum in the room. You have to have a quorum in the room.
Yeah, so we'd have 4 people dialing.
Also, hopefully by that point, we'll have,
Yeah,
at least,
so
we'll at least have our draft
Yeah,
of
draft
everything.
comments are gotta be, we gotta have just our draft blurbs for each of the town deliberative in the school.
What do we see, how we accomplish in the next couple of meetings,
Okay.
okay? And then make a decision.
I just want to be transparent, because I was supposed to have this child at the end of February, so. I just found out this week that that may not be the case, so.
Yeah.
Just wanted to let you guys know that I
Yeah.
might not be here.
This is small potatoes compared to,
Yeah.
Are we ready to
Motion to
adjourn?
adjourn?
Anything else? Okay. We have a motion on the floor to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
It's not too bad, 8:15.
Thank you.